Sort of coming Chapter 8:10. If it wasn't because of a business to discuss, Chen Pingan would not go to the Tawadu to disturb the monks of Kaik Mansion, delay them from refining the robes, and delay the Luopa mountain to make money. Don't make money with anyone who has trouble with it. Kaik Mansion is located in the Shueishao Kingdom of Hu's water country. Shueishao Kingdom, including the capital, is built on the island. Kaik Mansion is located at the junction of the giant lake and Dashi, and the stream is named Teowashui. White clouds hover over Tawadu all the year round. Surrounding the green hills where Kaik Mansion is located, such as wearing a snow-white crown, the mountains and rivers are dependent on each other, the white clouds are lingering, and the peach blossoms are full of beautiful scenery. Miyu has been here for many years to practice, and I heard that he has also caused a debt of love. Is it considered a ruin of the style of Luopashan? Chen Pingan kept the account silently, and had a good chat with Mi Dajiangxian when he returned to Luopa Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, there is a tea shop run by Kaik Mansion. In fact, the business has been deserted. Because the price of tea is too expensive, Teowadu's passing monks often choose to visit Taolin. After Chen Pingan and his party were seated, he and the female practitioner of Kaik Mansion signed their own registration numbers. The female practitioner heard that it was a young mountain owner from the fallen mountain who came to Tawadu. How dare to neglect, immediately spread the letter to the Patriarch Hall with a paper kite. After all, the female practitioner of Kaik Mansion, everyone knows that the Luopa Mountain in Ao Pingzhou, although it hasn't been a few years since the founding of the mountain, it is very rich. And now they are all sections. The Kaik Mansion can have today's weather, thanks to the Patriarch robe provided by Luopa Mountain, which was able to open up branches and leaves, and the descendants are full of children. With this cornucopia, they are all made with the Dali dynasty. Business has enabled Kaik Mansion to rise rapidly in just 20 years and rank among the first-class hills in Luzhou, northern Zhou. If it were not for the fact that Kaik Mansion had always only accepted female practitioners according to the ancestral rules, the number of disciples was not large, otherwise the prefix would be they can all be contended. Zhanglu Wuyut soon came with the wind, and when they met, he apologized to Chen Pingan first, because the palace lord Sun Qing took his direct disciple Lu Guibao and went out to practice together. Sun Qingmei called to protect the way for his disciples, but there was a reason to go to Taihui Jianzhou more. According to the rules on the mountain, a sect leader like Chen Pingan came here, and the rich man behind the Kaik Mansion, Sun Qing, must be present. Even if Luopa Mountain had a flying sword to send a letter in advance, after all, the Kaik Mansion had lost courtesy. What is the background of Luopa Mountain? Kaik Mansion couldn't be more clear. Just 2 words, unreasonable. After Sun Qing took Lu Treasure to watch the ceremony, after returning to his mountain, he joked with Wu Yu in private. Here, we can't find a fairy with wide eyes. On the Luopa Mountain, well, it seems like some Yuanning realm. They all dare not speak loudly. It seems that as long as you are not an immortal, you are embarrassed to go out and greet people. At that time, Wu Yu only heard Sun Qing talk about the list of observances for the opening ceremony, and he was stunned that he hadn't recovered for a long time. Wu Qin saw the woman wearing a snow-white robe and carrying a long sword box. Ning Yao still said, Ning Yao, Jian Xiu. Wu Yu held a fist to give a gift, and smiled heartily. The Patriarch of Kaik Mansion is in charge. Wu Yu, Saiguo, Shenjunyu. Wait a minute. Sword repair. Ning Yao. It will never be the Ning Yao from the Great Wall of Jinqi. Because it wasn't until Palace Master Sun Qing attended the ceremony that he knew that the Yumi who wandered around in Kaik Mansion every day was a sword fairy in the Jade Pu realm, and he could not be regarded as the chief worshipper in that Luopa Mountain. His real name is Miyu, from the Great Wall of Jinqi. His elder brother Mihu is a great sword immortal with outstanding combat achievements. Is there such a coincidence in the world? Chen Pingan is indeed amazing, but Wu Qin really doesn't believe that he can let Ning Yao follow him. Besides, Ning Yao followed Fei Xingcheng to the fifth world, with temple rules over there. How can he come to Haoran world? Do you soar with the sword? This is the difference between the Haoran Mountain sect and the second-rate immortal family. Besides, Kaik Mansion has no sword repair, and has been to the Great Wall of Jianqi. In addition, the Haoran Shanshui Mansion has been banned for many years, so until now, Wu Yu still doesn't know how great the official prestige of the Mountain Lord who was drinking tea in front of him is, and who used to be in Chun Banzai on the Hanging Mountain. It's just that Wu Qing is lucky, if it really is, he tentatively asked, where is Miss Ning's hometown? Ning Yao said, the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Wu Ye's face flushed instantly. Beiju Luzhou is the one that has the best relationship with Jianqi Great Wall among the 9 continents in the world, and there is no one. Therefore, the Qi practitioners here, even if they are not Jianxiu, know a lot about the Great Wall of Jianqi. Wu Yu personally made tea to entertain the guests, feeling agitated, unable to calm down for a long time. His hands were actually shaking uncontrollably. Tea is a special product in the back mountain of Kaik Mansion. It is called Siox Wanbi. There are no more than 12 old tea trees. It is picked by rare birds and colored birds and fried into a group by secret method. Wu Yu often couldn't help but glance at Na Ning Yao more often. Ning Yao is really the legendary Ning Yao. Today, there are some speculations and statements among the great mountains of Luzhou in Beiju. Without exception, they firmly believe that Ning Yao will be the first person in that brand new world. The key point is that Ning Yao is a woman. Wu Qing usually drinks tea with the palace master and treasures, so why not talk about Ning Yao? Especially Lu Treasure, who is arrogant, admires Ning Yao even more. But when it comes to Jianxiu, Ning Yao cannot be bypassed. Just like Haoran Tianxia, as long as she mentions pure martial arts, Pei Cup and Chao Ci cannot be avoided. Xiaomi Li took the teacup with both hands, thanked him, and then whispered his thoughts with the short winter melon beside him, drink slowly, but you can't drink quickly. The white-haired boy looked shocked, there is such a delicate way to drink tea. Millet, which rare book did you read from? Millet Grains held the cup in both hands, bowed his head and took a sip of tea, then gently nodded, expressing satisfaction, the taste is very good, then turned his head and smiled and said, no teacher can learn it. Chen Pingon holds a teacup, whirls it gently, squinting his eyes, cool breeze, happy mood, outside the tea shop water pavilion, the lake is like a mirror. There are countless peach blossoms in the streams and lakes, layered on top of the mountain. The colors are shallow and deep, like a beautiful woman evenly shade the makeup. Because Chen Pingon wanted to discuss business with people, Ning Yao drank tea and said goodbye to Wu Yu, and let Pei Qian, who had been to Kaik Mansion, lead the way. They wanted to go to Tianifang to appreciate those Kaik Mansions. Weaver mother weaves a robe. When Ning Yao was there, Wu Yu was always nervous, but when Ning Yao left, Wu Yu felt resentful. Wu Yu asked in his heart, Master Qin, can you ask about Ning Jiangxian's realm? Chen Pingon smiled and said, temporarily ascend to the realm. Wu Qin poured himself a full cup of tea and drank it with his head up. Today, I'm in a tea shop, and I've lost a lot of money. When the palace owner and treasure return to the mountain, I will say I spent tea with Ning Yao. In the end, it was a little bit worse. It was far better than having a drink at the same table with Ning Yao. The white-haired boy stayed, vowing to help the ancestor. Chen Pingon didn't think she was blowing up. In the matter of refining the robes, Wu Shuangjiang's Taoist heart demon is a first-class expert. Chen Pingon said straightforwardly, before I came here, I participated in the temple proceedings. The robes of Kaik Mansion have been recorded by the temple. It is on the waiting list. It is a big deal. Merchants, artists, and designers. The cultivator of the Ran family will continue to consider this matter. Regardless of whether this matter is successful or not, Luopishan and Dei will receive a letter from the temple, hoping that one day in the future, they will have the opportunity to congratulate Kaik Mansion. Chen Pingan took out a booklet, which was a manuscript of Jean Quiching's Refining Secrets. Dao Ju was given by the Wild Tao Pavilion. He gently pushed it to Wu Yu on the table and said with a smile, "The rank of the robe can be improved and improved." Turning back, Kaik Mansion will quickly give out the list of natural treasures needed for refining the robes. The more detailed the better. I will help search for suitable Shinjia hills all over Beiju Luzhou. The white-haired boy said in his heart, "Ancestor of the hidden official, can I take a look?" After getting permission from Chen Pingan, he got up to step on his feet and lay on the table. Then he took the booklet, flipped through it, and shook his wrists. In the distance, the water of the Peach Blossom Creek was filled with the essence of water, condensed into a green rod. The brush, there are a few peach blossoms flying across the lake, and falling on the table. The peach blossoms are lightly touched as if dipped in ink. They are Juban on the booklet. In small letters, here is a Taoist formula and a few suggestions over there. The blank spaces on the pages were densely written, and the content of a booklet was quickly doubled. Watching this scene, Wu Chen was shocked. Immortal handwriting, ethereal. Wu Yu couldn't help asking in his heart, "Shanju, who is this senior?" Chen Pingan smiled and said, "The new handyman in Luopa Mountain. First go to Qilong Alley to look at the shop. After passing the test, enter the G-Sifing spectrum." Wu Yu should only be regarded as the senior's identity should not be revealed. Chen Pingan is joking with himself. The white-haired boy raised his head, and his eyes showed colorful glaze. What kind of predecessor would the stinky lady speak? Chen Pingan's bent, just as a chestnut smashed over. The white-haired boy had to converge on the secret art of hunting the mind. If the ancestor of the hidden official was not here, he would only be more unconscious, so he would check all the 18th generations of Wyeth ancestors and write again. Dip the ink, the deep red color of the peach petals on the table becomes a little faint, and while writing hard, while doing business with the ancestors of the hidden officials, checking the gaps and filling the vacancies, you have to remember. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "You accidentally said losing money before, and it was recorded. Did you pay off for Pikey and side, or did you count each other?" The white-haired boy sighed and chose to offset the merits and demerits. In this temple discussion, the Lingbao Jia of Luzhou Sanlang Temple in Beiju, and the robe of Lao Jun Lane have been formally selected. Chen Pingan and Wu Qing talked about the inside story. For example, on the ferry side, according to the plan given by the temple, they separated extremely detailed 369 classes, such as the huge mountain ferry, which was extremely aggressive. The sword boat, the extremely fast Liuxia boat, has been formally adopted by the temple. Soon, the construction of 7 types of ferry boats including the sword boat will begin in various places. As for the robes, the situation is similar. Because the robes of Kaik Mansion suffer a bit in price, even the suggestions made by Dali Song Changjing are far more important than ordinary monarchs and monks. It is listed as a candidate. This refining matter, the craftsmanship on the mountain in Beiju Luzhou, is actually very colorful. The Lingbao Jia of Sanlang Temple, the imitation sword of the sword imitation sword of Hingjin Mountain, the 3-color robe of Fuguang Temple, and the crane robe feather clothing of Diyuan Chongxian Department. If you don't talk about rank, just talk about sales. The Leo Zhengxiang robe, which is monopolized by Kai Glinzong, is the best one, especially Yingran robe and Deweijia, one for the monks of the upper 5 realms and the other for the emperor of the secular dynasty. The monarch do not take the measure. Before getting the refining secret technique of Jean Quiching's robe, the robe skills of Kaik Mansion were not top-notch. The white-haired boy waved his sleeves, with a jasper pen in his hand, and the light red and white peach blossoms on the table were all scattered into the water, and he made a sigh of relief. "You're done." Chen Pingan flipped through the booklet quickly and gave it to Wu Yu again, reminding him, this booklet must be kept carefully. When Palace Master's son returns, you will only send the copy to the Song clan of Dali, and they will send it to the temple. The possibility of filling up the robes of Kaik Mansion is even greater. Once the temple nods, the number of robes of Kaik Mansion may be at least 2,000 to start. Furthermore, the robes are consumption, as long as the color is verified on the battlefield. The robes of the Sparrow House can even stand out from more than a dozen kinds of robes, and there will be a steady stream of lists. The most important thing is that the robes of the Sparrow House are well known in the Howran world, and business can be done in the future. Middle-earth, Aizhao. Wu Chen's heart swayed when he heard it, something that he couldn't even dream of. Chen Pingan began to pour cold water and reminded, in addition to the collection of disciples in your Kaik mansion, you must quickly put on the agenda, and you also need a priest or guest of the upper 5 realms. The tree attracts the wind, the wealth attracts the thief, be careful and be careful. Wu Yu said helplessly, who doesn't want to have it, our palace lord, with a good calculation, I want to be a Taoist couple with Mr. Liu, and I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I have my own marriage and mountain worship. But Mr. Liu refused to agree. What can be done? It's not difficult for Phi Ma sect to ask for a request, and ask for a famous guest, but it is too unrealistic to let a certain old ancestor come here to stay permanently. However, Sun Qing's love for Lu Jinglong from Taihui Jianzong is something that is known to all continents. In fact, this in itself is an amulet of Kaik Mansion. Once someone provokes Kaik Mansion for no reason, Lu Jinglong's temperament, who likes to reason, will definitely go down the mountain with the sword. If you don't love men and women, you just go with reason. But when Kaik Mansion's business is large enough to make people coveted, this relationship may not work. Wu Yu smiled bitterly, Lord Qin Shan, you can't think that our Kaik Mansion is the same big family because Luopa Mountain doesn't take the upper 5 realms seriously. Chen Pingan thought for a while and said, I will help you think about this matter, but I can't guarantee it will happen. Being able to stay in Kaik Mansion is best, but it doesn't have to be so. For example, if the king of Ending Wufu goes to sorrow, as long as he speaks out and says that he is the chief guest officer of Kaik Mansion, then all the coveted generations should be carefully weighed. After all, Wang Fuxuan's punches were notoriously based on his mood. In addition, the Lion Peak Mountain Master who has dealt with will also be a suitable candidate. However, it is hard to say whether these 2 seniors will agree or not. Anyway, they can try it. If you really want to hit the wall one after another, then go to Lingyuan Father Shenlin, and Longting Ho Liuan for help. Owing 1 favor is owing, and owing 2 is also owing. Zhu Quan, the immortal master of Guiqi, had previously traveled to the supreme sect of Phi Ma sect in the Central Earth Shenzhou. After returning, she was relieved of her position as the master, and the top spot was temporarily empty. She didn't even like to go to the Patriarch Hall to discuss matters. Just waiting for Du Si to break through the border and enter the Jade Realm, let Du Si, who has a stable temperament, succeed. I heard that Zhu Quan burst into laughter in the Patriarch Hall, openly letting go, saying that the old lady is now a novice and light-hearted, and whoever wants to chop will be chopped. Only Zhu Quan and CS Songhua from AI Aizhou, Chen Pingan was actually a little confused. After all, they couldn't even say anything about them. Wu Qin stood up solemnly, and after holding a fist to thank him, he was in a good mood, and he was less scrupulous in his words. He smiled and said, that is to say, I know that Qin Shanzhu is a gentleman with a righteous body and a clean heart, otherwise I will be Qin. The mountain master made an exception for the first time and called a few disciples from the Kaik Mansion to come over and drink with them. Chen Pingan's face turned black. Xiao Heitan still laughed so much that his stomach hurts. He covered his stomach with one hand, and slapped the table vigorously with the other, saying that the old cook, you are so funny. In fact, Chen Pingan didn't laugh less at the time. Before leaving, Wu Yut sent a few cans of Xiox Wanbi, saying about the pricing of the latest robe, so that both Luopishan and Chen Pingan were relieved and only guaranteed their profits. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "You don't need to deliberately just ask for a break-even. Since it's a business relationship, even if it's dealing with temples, you still have to earn money. We can make less." Wu Yut shook his head and said, "I don't need to discuss this matter with the palace lord. As long as it is the robe that is going to the temple, we won't make a single snowflake in the Kaik mansion. Brother Kaik mansion, no one has been to the Great Wall of Jinchi. If you have the opportunity to do this once, in the future, Wu Chen will go to the ancestor hall to worship the ancestors of the past, and he will be particularly at ease." Chen Pingan joked, "How can Luopishan deal with it? You don't make money with Kaik mansion." Wu Yu was speechless for a while. Chen Pingan clasped his fists and smiled, "That's okay then." In the end, the sister-in-charge looked at the pair of immortal couples standing side by side. She smiled and said to Chen Pingan and Ning Yao that she had an early son. Ning Yao was obviously caught off guard, hesitated for a moment, but still didn't say anything. Nodding, not shaking your head. Chen Pingan smiled, as if he had heard it, and did he hear it again? Just immediately felt that Kaik mansion worshipped Kuching. What kind of trivial matter? Put it on me, this Wuzongla just waits for the good news. Leaving Tawadu and arriving at the Yunshang city, the Lord Shinzhenzi, Su Xingzhou and Zhao Qingwan, who were already Taoists, were all in the city. We took the ferry to leave Yunshang city together and went to see the Xianjia ferry in the vicinity. The Luopa mountain paid the money, and Yunshang city was responsible for leaving the city. The scale is not too big, and it is slightly smaller than the Tawadu of Kaik mansion. However, being able to own a private ferry port itself is a kind of immortal mansion on the mountain. It is like having the ability to open up the next sect. Chen Pingan said he wanted to hurry, Shinzhenzi didn't want to stay. If only Chen Pingan was the only one, he would have to have a drink. After the young mountain lord was standing next to the woman named Ning Yao, Shinzhenzi didn't dare to stay. When revisiting the old place, it was still the street full of shops and baggage houses. Ning Yao visited them, and Chen Pingan and Su Xingzhou walked side by side. Chen Pingan squeezed his sleeves with both hands, and said with a smile, "Apricot wine, I am still idle, why don't you accompany me to find Lu Jinglong for a drink?" Zhang Shanfeng still has a young face similar to that of the past, but he eats and dresses well on the mountain, and he doesn't need to leave his hometown alone, so he is no longer so poor and poorer. The white-haired boy has been looking around, is this the place where the real fire dragon practiced? Knowing that the woman is Ning Yao, Zhang Shanfeng called a Daemenji, and said with a smile, "Hello, Miss Ning." Zhang Shanfeng on the trail, there is currently no road number. Ning Yao smiled and said, "I have seen Zhang Jinren." Zhang Shanfeng has no self-confidence. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "I heard the old man say that you are already a fairy." Zhang Shanfeng looked wrong, is the master mistaken, or did you hear it wrong? I was just in the sevuing state. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Then do you know my realm at the moment?" Zhang Shanfeng asked tentatively, "The fairyland? Is it soaring?" Chen Pingan was a little flat, "That's not possible yet." Zhang Shanfeng laughed and fought with me, "You are still very tender." Chen Pingan suddenly said, "Go, learn boxing with you." Zhang Shanfeng sighed, "It's troublesome." Chen Pingan looked serious, "I didn't make a joke with you. I have been learning your boxing during those years in the Great Wall of Jinchi, but no matter how I practice it, it seems to be wrong, and I can't practice your boxing spirit all the time." Zhang Shanfeng angrily smiled and said, "You said that there is no trouble. I am a cultivator, and I make two gestures. What kind of fist is there?" Chen Ping'an endured forbearance, but still couldn't bear it, and said angrily, "Just make 2 gestures." "Aw. Damn it, do you know how many punches Lao Tzu did in the city?" Stubbornly stubborn, gritted his teeth. "Didn't you still fail to get that fist up?" Zhang Shanfeng shook his robes and said with a grin, "I can't do anything about boxing, and I won't let the ancestor give a meal." Chen Pingon shook his sleeves and stretched out his palms. "Come on, let's practice and make a trick." Zhang Shanfeng leaped back, stretched his arms, and shook his arms around the swordsmanship posture. "I have learned the true teachings of the swordsmanship of Brother Su. Because of your poor qualifications in martial arts, Brother Su was not rare to teach you back then, and I was afraid that you would be sad. I have to keep hiding from you." Chen Pingon twitched the corners of his mouth. "Then I have to thank you." The white-haired boy was amazed. This little Taoist priest knows the sky is high and the earth is thick. The millet grain gently pulled Pei Qian's sleeve and whispered, "Zhang Zhenren's knife skills sound so strong." Pei Qian nodded sternly. Ning Yao laughed. "Chen Pingon is rarely seen like this. I heard that at the liquor store on the Great Wall of Jinchi, I might let go a little bit, and I would say a few words about meat. It seems that I can often win the applause of the house." Sword of Coming Chapter 8:12. Chen Pingon took off the sword gourd, took a sip of wine, glanced at the plaque at the foot of the mountain arch, and said, "The writing is not very good, not as good as apricot blossoms on the roadside." This sect is called Suoyun and is located in the northern part of Luzhou in Beiju. It is good at reducing the truth and arresting ghosts, refining mountain incense and painting door gods. The immortal family sect in Beiju Luzhou is the only one among the Jiuzhou of Haoran, where every household will create formations for their ancestor halls, and spare no effort. On the Beizhou Mountains, the center of gravity is mostly to maintain a mountain protection formation, and more are a symbolic prohibition on mountains and rivers was set up on the Zhushitang. Lu Jinglong asked heartily, "What do you say next?" It was the first time that Lu Jinglong had done this kind of thing about Jian Zhushitang. Originally, he meant that the two of them did not need to fall on the side of the mountain gate, and they directly stopped in the air and handed out a few swords with Chen Pingon. The ancestral hall is divided into 2, so you can stop work and go back home. As for the formation of Suyunzong's Patriarch Hall and the restrictions on the landscape of several major mountain peaks, Lu Jinglong and Chen Pingon talked about it in detail on the way. However, Chen Pingon did not agree, saying that he would accompany you all the way to Yufeng for such a long way. In the end, he only cut 1 or 2 swords and ran away. "Did you Lu Jiuxian get drunk while drinking?" Chen Pingon said, "How do you say? Go up the mountain, we 2 walk all the way to the entrance of the Patriarch Hall and then take out the sword." Lu Jinglong's natal flying sword is one of the strangest among the sword repair flying swords Chen Ping's has ever seen. Dao Axian Jian Yi is the rules. Just listen to the name and you know that it is not easy to mess with. What's more, a rule can become a small world on its own. It seems that with a flying sword of life, Chen Ping's can be used as Chen Ping's caged sparrow and Jing Zhongyue. People are more popular than others, and they are friends, and they drink and drink. However, Chen Ping'an endured it. Lu Jinglong reminded, "I can walk with you to raise Yunfeng, but you remember to close your fists." Chen Pingon pinned the sword gourd to his waist again and smiled, "There are a few." The ancestral mountain of the Suyunzong in front of them is very strange, shaped like a piece of withered wood, spreading out. Half of the mountain is cut off at half the waist, and only one side curls up, and then turns into several peaks, high and low. It is different. Chen Pingon glanced at the flying sword slowly hovering in front of his eyes, just stretched out a finger, flicked it casually, and moved it out several hundred feet. Jean Dan Jiangxi's heart trembled, his soul swayed like water, and the concierge sternly said, "Hurry up and notify the Patriarch Hall of the colorful talisman." The porter tremblingly sacrificed the colorful talisman. Suyunzong Jinshou mostly came from Zaiking Zishan, and the extremely eye-catching Jinshou wearing a golden robe said in a deep voice, "Arrange formation." The sword light was everywhere, dazzled. It was the Qingji sword formation of Suyunzong, but Zaiqingzi Mountain and Zushan borrowed 2 sword repairers, otherwise the number is not enough and the formation cannot be completed successfully. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "You don't have to thank me for blooming Qingji." One step forward, to the center of the sword formation dissipated as soon as it got up, and the 7 people, including the golden core sword repair, bloomed like flowers, all flying backwards. Chen Pingan said, "There is no hilltop where there is no fairyland sword repairman, or no sect of ascendant realm qi training, so we should ask the sword like we do." Lu Jinglong said helplessly, "I learned it." On the higher level, halfway up the mountain, there is an old monk in the Yuanying stage standing there, holding the dust in his hand. The fairy wind road bone is the peak master of the Liu Peak. The old monk smiled and said, "The 2 Taoist sects are very true. If you stop here and exit the mountain gate, Suyunzong can forget the blame." In fact, the mountain protection formation of the Suoyun sect has been opened. The entire mountain top, with a little bit of color, shining brightly, shining so that the entire Suoyun sect is bright as daylight, and all the door gods have appeared. The number of 08. Chen Pingan was amazed, and asked, "This time it's you?" Lu Jinglong smiled and said, "You are so capable, and you haven't met a great monk in the Ascension realm." Chen Pingan nodded and stomped heavily, "Then go back." Although the door gods did not return to their original positions, they stopped at the same time. This shocked the old monk. Lu Jinglong wondered, "What's the matter?" Chen Pingan said, "I've been pondering this matter for a long time since Shijianhu, but I couldn't figure it out. Later, when I went to the Summer Palace, I kept going through the books. It might be different from the few talismans from when I first practiced boxing. There are some origins, but it's only possible. It's hard to know the truth." When Chen Pingan first visited the Great Wall of Sword Qi, for invigorating symbols were posted on his hands and feet, but they were broken before he met Jing Dafeng in the old Dragon City. Now there is no such old man in the backyard of Yang's shop. Chen Pingan once was on the Lion Peak and asked Li Er about the roots and feet of this symbol. Li Er said that he did not know the doorway here. Junior brother Jing Dafeng might know it, but it's a pity that Jing Gale went to the soaring city in the colorful world. After Chen Pingan was in the prison of the Great Wall of Jianqi and refined the last life thing, he felt that the matter must be thoroughly questioned. Lu Jinglong said, "Then change me." After that, the 2 climbed the mountain, together with the Suyunzong monk, including the old Yuanying of Liu Peak, seemed to be there, standing in the same place, throwing magical powers on their own, and from the eyes of others watching from a distance, it's incredible. 2 Taoist priests, one old and one young, just brushed past one of the monks who tried to block the way. Chen Pingan said with emotion, "You Fei Jin, you don't make sense." Lu Jinglong said calmly, "Within the rules, you have to listen to me." Chen Pingan asked, "What is the scope?" Lu Jinglong replied, "As far as I can see." Chen Pingan asked, "Before you were among the 5 realms, the 3 sword immortals Li Kai asked Jian Pi and Ranfeng according to the custom, did you not sacrifice this flying sword at the time?" Lu Jinglong nodded and said, "That kind of questioning sword is the place of Ejo etiquette. In fact, you can't take it too seriously." The 2 of them went all the way to the Zushan Mountain Yongyun Peak. Chen Pingan had nothing to do, so they had to take the Yongjin gourd and drink again. Before they saw the Patriarch Hall, the ancestor Wei Jing, the current suzerain Yang Ke, and the guest Qing Chui Gongzhuang, appeared together. Wei Jing squinted his eyes and said, "Whenever we have learned how to hide the head and hide the tail of the land flood dragons in Luzhou, North Ju, we will ask the sword when we ask for the sword." From a long-term perspective, I can't handle it, am not good at it, and I'll admit it. No matter what, it's better than Sect Master Liu's sneaky act, blinding Tai Hui Jianzong style. In the future, there will be disciples going down the mountain and being pointed out. It is suspected that the beam is not right and the beam is crooked. Lu Jinglong pointed to the old man next to him. I learned from him. Chen Pingan looked puzzled and said, "Is this Suyun sect, isn't it in Luzhou?" Lu Jinglong nodded and said, "Of course it is in Beiju Luzhou." Chen Pingan waved his hand and said, "It's impossible, don't lie to me. The monk from Beiju Luzhou in my impression is not pleasing to the eye. Either the other party falls to the ground or I sleep on the ground. How can it be so squeaky and crooked?" Lu Jinglong smiled and said, "It's Suyunzong after all. You act steadily outside the mountain. You talk a lot on the mountain. You have to be considerate." Chen Pingan said suddenly, "So that's it." When it came time, Lu Baqiao put his chin on the back of his hand, and just said softly, "I'm sorry, brother, I am the one who dragged you in Fenglei Garden." Huang He hesitated, stretched out a hand and placed it on Lu Baqiao's head. "Nothing. Zhongtu Shenzhou, Shanhaizong." Still encountered the cliffside wearing the green shirt before. Nailan Xianxiu, Gue Xiu Feizue, and the little girl still like to come here to watch the scenery. A low-level, small girl, when she first came to Shanhaizong, she brought only a small oil paper umbrella with her. She named herself Zhang Hua. Nailan Xianxiu, with a dry tobacco stick around her waist, it is rare today that she hasn't swallowed the mist all day long, just sat cross-legged, looking into the distance, looking at the mountains and the sea. The little girl was holding the flower. She just pierced a little grass man and threw it on the bamboo mat again and again, otherwise she would smash it down with a fist, and then stared at the little grass man lying on the ground with her arms around her chest, and hummed, "Hit damn you big villain." Nailan Xianxiu and the ghost repair the side said, "It's not good to like someone, but why bother to like that man? Knows best, and therefore least knows what it is. To like that embroidered tiger Chui Yang is actually more boring than to like left and right. The latter is really not knowing, the former is pretending not to know." Feizue is lying on the bamboo mat. There is the beauty of the ups and downs of the mountains. Men will like it. It may be the same as that of the text. The ghost Xiu Feizue, who looked like a girl next to her, actually didn't have such an appearance, but the life and death barrier failed to break the bottleneck. After the corpse, she had to do it. Of course, compared to the face and figure of the past, Fiki's skin is much more beautiful now. In fact, if she practiced step by step, she wouldn't end up in a corpse at all, and in 200 to 300 years, she would be able to become an immortal with the help of water milling. But together with the war, the wild world seemed to have taken Tonggishao in an instant and hit the old dragon city. She can't wait. The results of it. Not only did he not break the boundary, Chui Yang didn't see one side, he also died once. Nailan Xianxiu has long persuaded that if you like someone and make you dare not go to the Jade Pu realm, even if you go to the fairyland, you will only have the same result. It's just that Feizue has his own reason. If you want to go there in the fairyland, it is not an impossible thing for him to like himself. It is just that if you like a person, you must do something for him. As for why she likes it so much, he looks good. It's just that the master realm and seniority are all over there, and it's really empty, whereas the Tai Hui sword sect, it is basically the name of the Suoyan sect sovereign, the ancestral peaks, who will listen to his own orders. If it weren't for Wei Jing's several descendants, none of them would have been among the 5 realms, and the position of suzerain would not be the turn of Yang Ke, who had a different background. Lu Jinglong smiled and reminded, "Don't pay attention." Chen Pingan shook his head, removed the blindfold of the lotus crown in the Taoist robe, stretched out his hand to remove the skin, put it in his sleeve, and said with a smile, the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Chen Pingan. Of course the three of Suo Yunzong knew the Great Wall of Jinqi, but it was the first time they heard of the name Chen Ping, and Lu Jinglong couldn't help but smile and said, "Is it embarrassing?" Chen Pingan smiled and said, "It is enough to know that I come from the Great Wall of Jinqi." Sword of Coming Chapter 8:13. A Yuanyu Jinsho from the Great Wall of Jinqi. Wei Jingzue was uncertain. Didn't it mean that Go Huojiangxiu of the Great Wall of Sword Qi followed a city and fled to the fifth world? Cui Gongzhuang, who is a martial artist of the 9 realms, has made up his mind, honestly looks on the sidelines, and throws a half punch. Even if he loses, he will die. He was much simpler than Wei Jing's thoughts, and he only determined one thing in his heart, and he would never make a joke about the Great Wall of Sword Qi. And besides, this person was standing next to the current sovereign of the Taihui sword sect. Although Beiju Luzhou likes to compete with others' ancestors at every turn, in fact, asking the sword is never a trivial matter, especially this kind of resentment on the mountain where the face is completely torn between the two sects and others do not gamble. For the title of Chief Kaching, Cui Gongzhuang didn't need to bet on his martial arts future and his life. If Lu Jinglong just handed the sword to Suyunzong from a distance, he would leave after asking for the sword. He would climb the mountain all the way to raise Yunfeng and recognize his identity. Chen Pingan turned his head to look at that Yang Ke, and asked with a heartfelt smile, "How do you know I'm not easy to mess with?" "You have to ask something before you decide whether to do it or not." Chen Pingan admitted that he was very close this way, and Yang Ke had no reason to look at himself so high. Yang Ke bowed his hands and replied in his heart, "I have a friend from Jianzhou from his hometown who I met in the rivers and lakes in the early years. He has never been a guest of Suyunzong, but he has some personal friendship with me. He returned home from the Great Wall of Jinqi, mentioned a few people to me, in their words, they were greatly admired." Chen Pingan asked with a smile, "The last name is very famous, and what mountain is it from?" "Sect Master Yang might as well talk about it, maybe I know it." The sword repairman from Beiju Luzhou rushed to the Great Wall of Jinqi. Although there were a large number of people and complicated origins, both genealogy and wild repair, Chen Pingan really remembered his name. Yang Ke apologized, "I won't say the name, my friend has his own unspeakable concealment." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Why, your sword repair friend, have you ever been to Sun Juyuan's mansion for a drink, or went to Yanqing Lane to find me for tea?" Yang Ke was silent for a moment, and said slowly, "Liquor shop, seal, gambling house." No matter how much, Chen Jianxian will not try. Chen Pingan thought for a moment, nodded, and narrowed his eyes. "For the face of your unknown friend, you can let it go. Asking the sword today has nothing to do with you." Chen Pingan sneered and said, "Is it a capital crime or a living crime? You have the final say." Cui Gongzhuang's heart was horrified, and the complaints were endless. The 4 difficult ghosts on the mountain, and Jianzhou was the first, so the most difficult thing was of course the highest 5-level sword fairy in the border of Jianzhou. Wei Jingzue, the old immortal, turned around and left with a single sentence, "Yang Ke, you can't do anything tonight. You take the initiative to give up the way, let outsiders abuse the patriarch hall, and stop me from doing anything." Suoyunzong's prestige was ruined. On Yangyanfeng Mountain, there are countless golden threads forming the net. It is not easy for the ancestor of Feiqing to guard the wind. Fortunately, an immortal with great magical powers can't help but pinch his fingers, and the precious light flashes, making a secret technique of the sect. It turned into a palm-sized flying bird, carefully avoiding the strict golden sword light, a snow-white bird, blasting away like an electric wipe. At the same time, the moonlit hole on the side of Likua Peak suddenly lit up, as if a fairy bridge was erected to lead the ancestor back to the place of cultivation. Lu Jinglong suddenly smiled and said, "I didn't finish the truth, did I let you go?" Between Yangyun Peak and Liuyue Peak, the sword light of golden silk thread shredded countless bright moonlight, and the two colors of gold and silver complemented each other. The snow-white flying bird transformed into Weiss' quintessential figure seemed to be detained in a tightly fenced sword-like cage. With an angry shout, Wei Jing offered a golden figure, holding a moon-run mirror that is the treasure of the mountain. The mirror is shining, like a white dragon drawing water, condensing all the moon spirits in the deep pool of Liue Peak essence. A semi-celestial rank Biluo emerald green robe forcibly broke through the cage, repaired the two swords on the Yangyun Peak. The old fairy raised his arms, and a graceful figure appeared in the treasure mirror. The ascendant woman, the ribbon wavers, stepped on a bright moon, like an ancient goddess who drove the wind into the moon. Lu Jinglong stretched out his hand, holding a long sword condensed from the light of the sword around him, and smashed it out at the mirror-holding hand of Weiss' quintessential golden body. Chen Pingan knew that this swordsmanship was one of the famous swordsmanships of the previous sovereign Han Huizi. Great work cuts jade. The most suitable for the fight between sword repairs. Sure enough, not only was Weiss' elite golden body physiognomy cut off by one arm, but under the impulse of sword energy, the whole arm was suddenly broken into the world, and the towering golden body of white jade fragments fell like rain, just like the white clouds on Yangyun Peak. The fairy crushed to pieces, and a snow fell. It's just that the precious mirror and broken wrist of this fairy flying Qin are still hanging in the air, and the moonlight is pouring in like a waterfall, like a torrent of water, flowing from the cave of the Yellow River to the world. Lu Jinglong gently shook his wrists, the sword light circled the arc, raised the cloud peak, and then a vision was born. The clouds and scales gathered like the city, the sky and the earth were red, the evening atmosphere gathered and the clouds rose. The tide takes the stars away, the sword light is shining the Milky Way, the sky is floating and the fish belly is white, the sky is white and the world 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 is snowy. There are many monks in the Cloud sect. At this moment, there is no more Wei essence and golden body, only the sword of the Taihui sword heaven and earth. When Yang Ke saw that the moon mirror appeared, he felt a great hatred in his heart. The mountain master of Suoyun Zong inherited this treasure according to the rule, and was able to refine this mirror into a destiny. The essence is that Yang Ke's jade is not yet stable, and he cannot refine the treasure for the time being, so as to avoid errors. As a result, it has been delayed for 300 years. But in fact, who doesn't know the number? The Wei essence of Feiqing has already regarded this Zongman supreme treasure as a forbidden thing, not allowing others to get involved, as the stuff of his own avenue. Wei Jingzue made a good calculation, and only waited for the descendant of the ancestral mountain peaks in his line to pass on again, and he entered the Yupu realm, and he had his own means to force Yang Ke to change the lord, and then he would fly to the moon mirror. Didn't Wei Jingzue give his left hand and take it back with his right hand, just as a cutscene? Chen Pingyan came to Cui Gongzhuang. Cui Gongzhuang took a few steps subconsciously, and before he could hide his embarrassment with words, the man followed him like a shadow, came to Cui Gongzhuang, put his fingers together, and gently tapped the shoulders of the 9 realms Wufu. Just with such an understatement, Cui Gongzhuang's shoulders were slanted again and again, and one foot was already sinking into the ground. Cui Gongzhuang no longer dared to evade, his shoulders were severely painful, and he only heard the person admiring, "Soldier Jinwujia, I have never heard I saw it for myself, as a sword cultivator, it costs money to refine swords, and I am shy in my pocket. I have never had a lavish time to sell. I guess I can't afford it even if I see it." Cui Gongzhuang oozes sweat on his forehead, endures the pain that his shoulder is almost broken, and trembles. If Chen Jianxian likes it, the junior is willing to give it to the senior as a meeting gift. Chen Pingan complained, "Send it." "No. Just borrow it." The palm of Chen Ping's hand, with 5 fingers like a hook, grabbed Cui Gongzhuang's neck, casually lifted it up, and smiled, "You're thinking about it." The sword repairmen of the Great Wall of Sword Cheat generally don't have my good temper. It's luck that I ran into me today. Otherwise, you will be on the road to reincarnation by changing to Qi Lao Jian Xian and Mi De Jian Xian. You will be on your way to reincarnation. Wrong. Wrong, it is your life money. In the next 100 years, I will ask Sect Master Yang to help me stare at you, and if I have an activity similar to today's lack of morality, I will go to the Yunnan country to the north to visit Grandmaster Cui when I am free. Cui Gongzwang's feet were suspended from the ground, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked a little oozing, and his legs twitched a few times, like a grasshopper jumping a few times after autumn. Yang Kei's eyelids trembled as he watched. Is this person really a sword repairer? Instead of a hidden martial artist? Could Qing Cui Gongzwang's 9 the foundation, among the mountaintop martial artists in Beiju Luzhou, is not too good, but not bad. The reason why he was able to become the chief of Suyanzong was that Wei Jingzui took a fancy to Cui Gongzwang's hope in the future, and he was among the limits of the legend. Chen Pingan frowned and said, if you don't speak, you just don't agree. Cui Gongzwang tried to take a sip of pure qi, but it collapsed on the spot, so his face turned red and purple, and then turned into iron blue, his hands and feet were drooping, and his eyes were a little dazzled. Chen Pingan released his fingers, and the dizzy Cui Gongzwang fell to the ground, squatting on the ground, coughing with his head down. Chen Pingan smiled and said, I'm embarrassed to watch any play that is so clumsy. If I don't get up again, I will give you an 8-level martial artist in return. Cui Gongzwang immediately got up, took a deep breath, took a step back, bowed his head and clasped his fist. Thanks to the predecessors for not killing, I am grateful. In the next 100 years, Cui Gongzwang will be a man with his tail between his tail and close the door to practice martial arts. No, it was a waste of seniors' advice today. Chen Pingan sneered, non-committal. Lu Jinglong has already collected his sword. The old immortal Wei Jing was nailed into a stone wall of Liuyue Peak. Lu Jinglong asked heartily, would you like to take away the moon mirror? Chen Pingan angrily smiled and said, is it true? We are here to ask the sword today, and it is not here to kill people and win treasures. This kind of thing spreads. You, the sect master of the sword sect of Anhui, don't want your reputation. After that, Cui Gongzwang's courage was broken. Sovereign Yang Ke gave up the road and took the initiative to remove the prohibition on Yangyanfeng Ancestor Hall, allowing Lu Jinglong to gather the sword energy of the peaks, only turning the Ancestor Hall into 4 pieces. Chen Pingan's cultivation is indeed an end martial artist, a sword fairy in the Yupu realm. This person is very likely to kill immortals, except for sword repair. Lu Jinglong sacrificed his natal flying sword at Yangyanfeng. The rank is very high. It can be a small world of its own. The sword will be full of all things, but I don't know more natal magic powers. The combat power must be regarded as a fairyland sword repair. Quickly help me win the mirror and take the opportunity to frame Taihui Jinzong. Chen Pingan said, why are we both in the same realm, as if I can't beat you? What kind of eyes does Sect Master Yang have? No wonder we can't compete with Wei Feiqing. Lu Jinglong replied, then I can help you modify the content of the letter, and it will be fine to hit a bunch of Ascension realms. Come on, how many do you want to hit? Chen Pingan smiled and said, isn't it drunk again? What a good Lu Jiuxian, he has reached a table-like state where he can get drunk without drinking. After quietly traveling with Yu Feng and releasing the most crucial flying sword, Chen Pingan returned to Lu Jinglong and waited 3 days in vain. Before Chen Pingan planned to leave for the Dragon Palace Cave Sky, he would go to Yangyun Peak with Lu Jinglong, or go to the little school named Tunghua Mountain. In the end, who is the master behind the scenes who can help Yang Ke seize a moon-run mirror with such a method, not to mention the position of the sovereign, but also use the life of a fairy realm great monk as a capital to go to the Taihui sword sect? Splash dirty water. However, Lu Jinglong said, before it's time to start the snake, I will go there and go to the vines first. Whenever I really need to ask the sword, I will definitely notify you as soon as possible. Chen Pingan nodded. Lu Jinglong did things the most appropriate, got up and said, be careful yourself. Lu Jinglong got up and smiled, be careful. Chen Pingan handed out a pot of wine. I saw the lady of the Qingshan before discussing the Confucian temple. The other drinks don't matter. Look at the Pianran Peak, so I won't persuade me. Drink. Lu Jinglong hesitated for a moment, and still took the jug. The two sides are about to part. Anyway, there is no reason to persuade wine. Chen Pingan did not put away the bird in the cage, and left without a sound. Lu Jinglong didn't put away the natal flying sword for the time being, opened the jug, took a sip. It was good, when I had never drunk the Qingshan liquor sold in the liquor store, right? Chen Pingan went all the way south and found Ning Yao and the others at the ferry crossing of the Dragon Palace Cave of the Water Dragon sect. Xiaomili said that they had stopped by Duckweed Jinhu as a guest. Chen Pingan smiled and nodded. Xiao Yuan Dynasty. After strictly learning about the incident, the fairy monk was speechless, with turbulent waves in his heart, and unable to calm for a long time. He sighed and ordered someone to call that sternly, saying that you don't need to go out and follow Nongguang to practice the road. In the past few days, the face was red and stern, as if falling from the clouds into the mud, dumbfounded, and couldn't help asking his ancestors what they were. I was in a bad mood, and his face was blue with anger. Why did the ancestor know what the ass? God knows how an ascendant monk died suddenly at the gate of the mountain. His head was cut off, and he was lifted strictly. With one hand, he hit the stern figure and revolved dozens of times, and fell directly from the house to the courtyard. Strictly screamed away, his cheeks were swollen like a hill, and he stretched out his hand to cover his face, feeling anxious, and left sadly. Jizengtian Pavilion. The owner of the museum, Yun Yi, and his fellow Taoist in the fairyland, looked at the secret letter from the sect where Nan Guangzhou was located, and they were relatively speechless. As for the direct disciple Li Qingzhu, it is estimated that within 100 years, he will faceless and go down the mountain. Yunya put down the secret letter and trembled. Heaven's heart is unpredictable, gods and ghosts are unpredictable. His Taoist couple asked softly, who is capable of this swordsmanship, and killed Nan Guangzhou on the spot, so that this ascended realm could not leave his mountain gate. Yunyao said, it's useless to think more, don't guess. Even on the side of Taoists who are closely related to each other on the roads of the two sides, Yun Qi never knows everything and speaks without saying anything. He is unwilling and dare not. In fact, the Taoist couple didn't know why, but Yunya knew in his heart that he didn't have to guess. Certainly the handwriting of the city lord of Baidi. Could it be that Mr. Zheng was suggesting that he had included that sect that had no leader without Nongguang? Earlier, a secret letter was passed to Outo Mountain, asking myself for the white jade Ganoderma. Is that why? What Mr. Zheng meant, is he saying that you only need a half-celestial soldier in Yunya to earn a sect for nothing? The sky is average. It's just that the hilltop of Nangguangguang is a big sect. The original background is far from comparable to that of Maishan Sword sect, so planning is extremely difficult. It was just a second thought that Yunya was very pleasantly surprised. Fortunately, Nan Guangguang is an old man who is stingy by nature, and only cultivated a Yupujing as the master of the embroidered pillow. He treated several direct and personal inheritances as such. In addition, the disciples and grandchildren are even more effective. Year after year, they have raised a litter of waste. So, without the sect of Nangguangguang, it is really no better than Maishan Jianzong. After all, it was supported by Nan Guangzhou alone. A Confucian swordsman in the vast world, however, was among the 14th realms in the Qingming world, breaking the realm wall, and falling in the wild world. The decline was unambiguous. Liang suddenly asked, "Brother Qingmi, do you know which fairy is the best in the world?" Feng Shuatao shook his head and said nothing. Liang said, "Of course it's a small waist fine." Feng Shuatao didn't hear the homophony. "It's just that Liang is in trouble again. Let's go, take you to beat the small waist." Liang waved his hand. "The ugly thing is ahead. If you have a bad waist, you can't beat it." Feng Shuatao thought that he had gone out of 100,000 mountains, and he would ignore it all the way, and follow the Liang power all the way to the south. When he saw a wild sect, he would smash one. "I never thought that it would be a dinner of laughing yen, a drunken fan, and a monster monk." At the banquet, Liang and the demon monk in the fairyland greeted each other with joy and praised their brothers and sisters, each of them complaining about their hard work. Liang is very much like a native sword repairman in the wild world, and the monster monk of the mountain master's words is very much like a gas trainer in the world. This mountain, in the early years on the other side of Tuiyue Mountain, made a large sum of immortal money by smashing the pot and selling iron. The monks on the mountain had never been to the Great Wall of Jinqi, and went to the vast world. Liang held up a glass of wine, and said solemnly, "Generally speaking, the wine bureau rules, and the guests do not bring guests. I broke the rules and I have to find 3 glasses." It said awe-inspiringly, where your friend, Liang, is like a good brother who cut chicken heads and burned yellow paper with me. What are you polite? Take this place as your own." He lifted his chin, endured the distress, and motioned to the female cultivator, and quickly went to the warehouse on the top of the mountain again, and then gave the dog Day a pot of the treasured Diluo River water transport immortal brew. This thing is extremely rare, and it is impossible to buy it with money. The monster monk in the fairyland seemed to know Liang very well, and shouted a group of fox beauties, graceful and graceful, wearing tulle, looming. Liang glanced at it, seemingly disappointed, and he waved his hand and said 3 words. "Next batch." Liang quickly explained, "I don't care. It's my friend. It's better to take a few mouthfuls. He has a high-level vision and is very troublesome." It laughed heartily. Good things, celebrities are really heroes. Feng Shuatao felt that if Yasheng was here, he wouldn't be swearing. Could he directly beat Liang to death? After drinking, Liang flushed, squinted Feng Shuatao, winking his eyebrows, as if to say, "I understand you. If you still don't look at the beauty, you can change it." Sword of Coming Chapter 8:14. The archway at the ferry crossing in Jidu is called Underwater Cave Sky. The water surface of Dadu is especially vast here, even as wide as 300 miles. Chen Pingan came here last time with a sword on his back and a red wine hanging on his waist. The attire of the gourd was just a sword fairy last time, but now it has been replaced by a night tour, and the green bamboo hiking stick is missing in his hand. At the wooden slave crossing of the Water Dragon sect, the founder of the mountain planted more than 1,000 orange trees from the immortal family. Before the soldiers passed away, he said with a smile that he had a mediocre practice in this life, and only 1,000 wooden slaves were bequeathed to their children. Chen Pingan thought of Sun Yuan, the ancestor of Yu Guizhong, for no reason. Hearing Jiang Shangzhen said that the real last words of Sun's life in this life are actually 3 words that are self-explanatory, Yu Jia is poor. It seems that all the sects with orderly inheritance and continuous incense on the mountain have a budget top spot. Chen Pingan and Ning Yao apologized and said, "We have been delayed for a few days more than expected in Suyanzong, so I want to accompany you to visit Longgong Dongtian and the Fushui Island. I need to go straight to the Chongxian department of the Diyuan dynasty. Talk to Emperor Lu and Yang Qingyan, the national teacher, and then meet Sun Jia and Xiao Jingji of the north and south sects of the Water Dragon sect, and talk about the lease or sale of Fushui Island." "You are on Fushui Island?" When I get better, the scenery in the Longgong cave is extremely beautiful, and it won't be boring to go around for a few days. I will try to go back quickly. Ning Yao nodded and saw that Chen Pingan didn't mean to leave, and said, I've mentioned this for you on the side of Li Jianxian on the Jinhu Lake in Fuping. She said it's no problem. 30% of Fushuwei Island that has been without an owner for many years. If you really have an idea to build a summer resort on the mountain in a foreign country, you can buy it directly. There is no reason for the water dragon sect to block three things. If the price is not agreed, just leave it to dry and turn around to bargain. Millet Grains stretched out his hands to block his mouth, and smiled. Li Jianxian can be heroic, so he waved his hand and said that it was a big deal. If you negotiate, you will bargain. If you don't negotiate, you will cut people. Rent a hammer, yes. Someone slapped her in the face. Chen Pingan rubbed the head of the Millet Grains, glanced at the long queue, and smiled with Ning Yao. I will help you buy a few customs clearance documents to Xiaodongshan before leaving. It is a fairy orange wooden seal. It's unique, but it's a pity that you can't take it with you. You must return it to the Water Dragon sect. After passing the archway, there are dozens of stone inscriptions in front of you. In comparison, it is simply a shabby settlement on the mountain. After receiving the secret letter, Yang Qing, the national teacher, left the Chongxian office immediately, went to the palace, and met His Majesty. The Lu dynasty of Diyuan, at the beginning of the founding of the country, regarded itself as the blessing of water and virtue, which can be seen from the name of the country. Today, the emperor summoned more than 30 prodigies from the locals in a small warm pavilion in Xiangyang. It was nothing more than to encourage these future talents, and then select a few people to ask questions and rewards. As for the specific list of candidates and standing positions, the Ministry of Rites has long concluded that if the emperor is in a good mood, of course, he can ask a few more people. Afterwards, it is nothing more than a gift from the imperial court, just a few more. This warm pavilion is not big. Today, when there are many people, it is slightly crowded, but the young prodigies are very flattered. There are a few of the cold-born, with trembling lips and composure. It is not easy to be rude because they all listen. It is said that His Majesty the Emperor would choose this place only when he saw the important ministers in the center of the temple. According to the saying in the officialdom of the capital, this is the place where His Majesty the Emperor talked with others. Today, Emperor Luz finally singled out a young man from the border town, and asked the question, I only know the orders of the rich, but don't know the laws of the country, what to do? How to deal with it appropriately? Fortunately, the national teacher helped to clear the siege. The emperor stood up, smiled and comforted the uneasy young man, and said that in the future, if he had an idea, he could submit his thoughts to the Libuiman. Under the leadership of the superintendent's palm seal, the group of young prodigies filed out, stepping gently, and left the warm pavilion. Young Qingxian struck a door with the emperor and talked about the visit by the hermit Chen Pingan. The emperor smiled and said, so fast. Did the hermit come directly to our Beiju Luzhou as soon as he left the Confucian temple? Young Qing nodded fearfully and said, this is mostly the case. The Chongshan department just received Chen Pingan's greeting message on the front foot, and received a message from the mountain on the back foot. Taihui Jianzong Lu Jinglong asked Jiansuoinzong together, climbing all the way to Yangyanfing, and directly demolished the other party's patriarch hall. Sovereign Yang Ke did not stop him. Kiching Chui Gongzhuang had a dispute with others, and was injured. Immortal Wei Essence, I sacrificed the moon flying mirror, still under Lu Jinglong's sword, and was seriously injured. However, this is because the Chongxian department has spies installed on the side of Suyanzong, so it is earlier than other ordinary sections. I learned about it in a few days. The emperor motioned the national teacher to sit down and talk. On the couch, there was a food box filled with various pastries. The emperor pushed the food box toward the national teacher, and then he twisted a piece of apricot flour cake. Chew, and smiled and asked, "Is it inappropriate to see him here?" Yang Qing nodded fearfully and said, "Your Majesty and him officially met for the first time, so you really don't need to be so close. And the many decorations here." The national teacher looked around and smiled. "It will reveal too much of your Majesty's thoughts." The emperor asked curiously, "Suyunzong is such a big sect, and on its own site, it can't stop the two Jade Pure Realm Sword Immortals from climbing up gradually?" Suyunzong has one immortal and one jade, and there are a large number of earth immortal monks. At first glance, it can be said that they have a deep foundation. It is just that Wei Jing and Yang Qin have their own thoughts, and they are in harmony with each other for a long time. This is a taboo of any sect. Yang Qin was afraid to sit sideways, facing the emperor. The Taoist Tianjun held the tail in his hand. The white jade pole was inscribed on the seal with 8-character inscriptions. It was used for humility and inscription, Fengshen. After hearing the words, the emperor nodded, took another piece of pastry and put it in his mouth. After slowly swallowing it, he asked, "Then go to your Chongxian office to serve guests." Yang Qing fearfully smiled and said, "It's your Majesty's Chongxian department." The emperor clapped his hands and said, "A family does not talk about two things. Emperor Lu's flowing water, Yang's Yunshao Palace in iron." This rebellious argument has actually been circulated in the ruling and opposition parties for many years. But I have to admit that, whether the Chongxian department or Yunshao Palace, it is in the hands of Emperor Lu. He can make progress. Yunshao Palace is a typical temple for descendants, a family, and his surname seem to be hereditary, similar to that of Longhu Mountain. In fact, the two brothers Yang Ningzhen and Yang Ningxing went to Wucai World, and the emperor also had high hopes. The next day, in the Chongxian office, Emperor Lu met the young hermit who arrived on time as scheduled, and did not make the emperor wait for a while. In fact, there is really a Chongxian office on duty by a court official. It occupies a small area. The emperor entertains the sword immortal in Chongxian. It is in a secluded courtyard in the Chongxian department. A young prince has no outsiders. After Chen Pingan followed Yang Qing into the hospital, he bowed his hands in a salute. Emperor Lu had already stood up and waited, holding his fists in return, and the young prince beside him called Mr. Chen respectfully. After the young man got up, he looked at the sword fairy in green shirt, full of curiosity and longing, and a little awe and admiration. Chen Pingan came to the Chongxian department this time. In fact, there are 3 things. First of all, thanks to the Lu family's protection of Luopishan Chen Lingjun's early desecration, Dadu, a member of the dragon, will take away a considerable part of the water transport. For a dynasty like Lu's, this is a real break. Therefore, the vassals of the dynasties and vassals of the past dynasties, let alone protect the way and give way, will only make troubles. Then there was a discussion with Emperor Lu's about cross-continental commerce, and finally it was the sale of Fushui Island. Talking about it is actually a word of money. Emperor Lu was extremely vigorous and resolute. He had no courtesy on the profanity. It was straightforward to say that if it hadn't been for Lingyuan father Shenlin and Longting Ho Liyuan, he would have greeted Daiwan's imperial court a long time ago. He didn't recognize Mr. Chen at that time. Allowed, but now is different from the past, so in the future there will be similar violations. Just say hello, Dun, and all vassals will be released. As for cross-continental trading, Yang Qing might have already discussed with Chen Pingan at the Gongdalan of the Confucian Temple, so today the emperor directly took out a booklet. It is not thin. It contains information about various Dun specialties and mountains. The price of the goods is detailed and appropriate, as well as the drawing plan for different steps of Luopishan. The household officials who will be responsible for the specific docking with Luopishan in the future are refreshing. Chen Pingan reads it and reads it at a glance. Chen Pingan closed the booklet and said with a smile, "Your Majesty is interested, there is no objection on the side of Luopa Mountain." Not surprisingly, within Jiazi, Emperor Lu seemed to be a little surprised. Mr. Chen doesn't make a counteroffer anymore. Otherwise, there will be less fun, and there is no reason to drink. At the Chongxian department, there are many 100-year-old three-gear wines. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "If your Majesty doesn't mind, you can just stop drinking Dragon Palace Dongshan's third wine. I have a few pots of wine from my own wine shop." The emperor asked, "But the Qingshan Mountain Jiu Shui of the Great Wall of Jinqi?" Chen Pingan laughed blankly. How could it be that he was inviting the emperor to drink fake wine? "It's okay, you can remedy it." Chen Pingan took out 3 pots of wine and put it on the table, then took out a copybook from his sleeve and handed it to the young prince. He smiled and said, "It's my husband's copybook." The young man's face turned red instantly. He hurriedly got up, took the handwritten copybook of Mr. Wen Xing with both hands, thanked him and took his seat. The young man held the scroll cautiously. Regarding the purchase and sale of Fushui Island, Yang Qing is afraid that the Chongxian department will write a letter to the Shuilong Zongzu Shirtang, which belongs to 30% of the Deyuan dynasty. The second visit to the Chongxian office in return. After drinking the Qingshan wine, Chen Pingan planned to leave. The boy suddenly pulled the emperor's sleeve slightly. The emperor laughed and said, "Mr. Chen, in your opinion, does Lu Jun have the qualifications to practice martial arts?" This question is naturally redundant. Whether a prince's aptitude is good or bad, whether he is practicing Taoism or practicing martial arts, he needs to wait until his youth before asking a foreigner. Chen Pingan said, "Very average." The young man looked sad. Chen Pingan smiled again, but martial arts training is not the same as practice. It also talks about qualifications, not qualifications. For example, my martial arts qualifications were very common back then. It's just hard work to practice martial arts. If you want to find a boxing teacher master, I can do it reluctantly, but you and me are not considered as formal mentors and apprentices. The youth was full of vigor in an instant, and practicing boxing was originally a second thing. Finding a bully master is the top priority. As for the only person in his mind who can be his own master, he was once far away, but now he is close to him. Finally, Chen Pingan gave Lu Jun a handbook, and talked about some rough training matters. Emperor Lu and the national teacher Yang Qing looked at each other. They were very surprised. It was actually a copy of Shaking Mountain. Boxing. Does this young hidden official have the origin of boxing techniques with Gu Yu, the great seal martial artist? Chen Pingan came from the gate of the Chongxian office today, and also walked from there. The 3 emperors of Lu's came all the way to the door, watching the Yufeng in the green shirt leave. The emperor chuckled softly. "I have imagined a lot of scenes when we met before, but when we really sit down and deal with each other, it seems that there is nothing left. Even if you drink wine, it seems to be drinking tea, even a little tasteless." Yang Qing is afraid the voice reminded, "Your Majesty, don't take it lightly, this is the real power of this person's cultivation." The emperor nodded and glanced at his most important son beside him. At this moment, the boy didn't know he was about to become the Prince of Deyuan. The emperor took his gaze back and laughed with the national teacher, then look at the money for a few more years. After Chen Pingan left the Deyuan dynasty, the wind was very fast, and occasionally in the night, he encountered the lights under the mountains, slowed down and lowered his figure, passing by those human cities, and there was still too much time to look at the many scenes. The world is vast, and there are still good mountain poems. The river flows down, and the moon is up and down, the crows and the dogs bark in the back alleys, and the market claps loudly at night. Instead of going straight to Munuru and paying a homage to the water dragon sect, Chen Pingan first walked to the newly built water mansion of Lingyuan Master Shenlin. Suddenly he understood why the water dragon sect was short of money. If Shenlin only used the old Nanchuan water palace owner in his family, it is absolutely impossible to build such a dugong mansion, not to mention the relationship between the old Shuizheng Li Yuan and the Shuilongzong. The Longting Ho Shuifu must also be on credit with the Shuilongzong. After Shenlin saw Chen Pingan, he immediately sent a letter to Longting Ho Mansion, and Dada Gong Ho was so fast that he did not lose to an ascendant monk, so Chen Pingan only waited less than half an hour before seeing him. The black-clothed boy Li Yuan, when the latter heard that Chen Pingan was going to spend money to buy Fushui Island, he was heartbroken and jumped up and spat in the direction of the water dragon sect, saying that it was already Lao Tzu's territory. Sun Jia and Xiao Jingji had the shame to collect money, but after hearing Chen Pingan talk about the situation on both sides of Fuping Jinhu and Chongxian Department, Li Yuan didn't go directly to Shuilong Zongzu Shirtang to curse the street, and Shenlin said that we should write a letter to Shuilongzong. Shenlin glanced at Chen Pingan, who gently shook his head, and did not agree with Li Yuan, who is not stingy. Li Yuan sat on the chair with a grin and wondered, "Brother Chen, since you don't need my help with Shenlin, you just made a special trip, so there is nothing else." Chen Pingan smiled and said, Chen Lingjun succeeded in his profanity. "It is not easy. I just happened to pass by Jidu. Can't I thank you too well?" Li Yuan kicked off his boots, sat cross-legged, and said sadly, "Then why didn't you go to my mansion?" "Why, I think Shenlin's official hat is bigger than me, so I came here." "You brother, it's so embarrassing." Suddenly, Li Yuan's eyes lit up, he glanced at the young sword immortal Qingshan, and then at Shenlin, who was actually very good-looking. He smiled, "Got it." With a cough, he bowed his head and did not wear shoes. He picked up a boot in each hand and walked to the door. "I will go outside and guard, is enough for you too?" Shenlin smiled and didn't care. Chen Pingan said helplessly, "Say it in advance and follow me to the Dragon Palace Cave Sky. Don't be so nonsense. Otherwise, you won't be together." Li Yuan was puzzled. "Are there women traveling with you?" Chen Pingan nodded and said, "I took my wife." Li Yuan slapped the chair and laughed. "Isn't it beautiful that my husband has a couple of 3 wives, for concubines, 5 or 6 Taoists?" Sword of Coming Chapter 8:15. I heard that the woman in front of me called herself Ning Yao. Even if there are many people with the same name and surname in the world, Li Yuan is not stupid. At least there are no 2 Ning Yao in the Great Wall of Jinqi that Chen Ping has traveled. Li Yuan's legs trembled, and he quickly grabbed Chen Pingan's arm. The supernatural powers of the old master who had been violent in the past to make up for the dead are a must. Because of his guilty conscience, he did not dare to look at Ning Yao. Li Yuan just talked to Chen Pingan. A word that blessed the soul. "Chen Pingan, brothers belong to brothers, the truth belongs to the truth, you really don't deserve Ning Jianxian." Can Miss Ning shout casually? Must call Ning Jianxian. As for whether the Ning Jianxian appreciates or not, Li Yuan doesn't know and doesn't guess, but fortunately, Chen Pingan smiled happily and sincerely. He probably thought that Li Yuan had no problem saying this. Only then did Li Yuan take a reassurance pill, turned around cautiously, straightened the flap of the water robe on his body, and said in a polite manner, "Jidu Li Yuan, pay homage to Ning Jianxian." Ning Yao pinched the sword art ceremony with one hand and said, "Ascension City Ning Yao, I have seen Jidu Liu." Li Yuan was promoted to the post of Dadu Longting Ho, and he was awarded the Confucian Temple official title a few years ago. He is like the first-class prince on the mountain in the Shanshui officialdom. Therefore, Ning Yao called the other party Liu, which is a very decent respect. It is true that Li Yuan has a bright smile on his face, but it is really sad and true. This glorious scene, no one has used fairy art to copy it, otherwise he can frame the portrait well in the future, hang it in the lobby of the main house of his home mansion, and directly use it as the plaque. Regarding Ning Yao's deeds and rumors, there is actually a watershed. Before the battle that swept across Hauran, there was mainly one statement about Ning Yao. There are actually only 3 kinds of geniuses in sword repair in the world. The sword fairy embryo that ranks among the Yuaning, the 100-year-old golden pill of the world. The last one, of course, is Ning Yao. After the 5th world was opened up and the door opened, Ning Yao's reputation has stepped up several steps. In fact, before the closing of the Temple of Confucius, some mountain trails came back to Hauran, such as Ning Yao's success without suspense. The situation is like a broken bamboo, which makes people dizzy. This means that Ning Yao has been recognized by the great road of the world. Therefore, the monk of Hauran Mountain, everyone has long been convinced that this young woman will be the first person in the whole world in the future. This is not an avenue at all, because Ning Yao is destined to reach the top of the avenue, and for a long time in the future, she will be alone on the top of the world, with no one beside her. White-haired boy, it has already been said that no one should grab the grottos and iron workshops, and they will all belong to it. It seems that the site has been divided up before Chen Pingon bought the Fushui Island. Chen Pingon lightly stepped on the ground and said with a smile, "This is one of the 3 most suitable places to practice in the small cave, except for the main city island." According to the estimation of the Water Dragon sect, the original price 200 Guyuqin. Because Dragon Palace Cave and Sky are shared by the 3 forces, Chongxian Department and Duckweed Sword Lake both confiscated the money. Water Dragon sect accounted for 40%, so I offered 80 Guyuqian. I was not embarrassed to counteroffer. Letter to Luopa Mountain, send money over immediately. In fact, the earliest Water Dragon sect was reluctant to sell Fushui Island, and a very small meeting of the Patriarch's Hall was more inclined to lease. Even if it was agreed for 300 to 500 years, it would not hurt, but it was really unable to hold the Duckweed Sword Lake and Chong. The 3 consecutive secret letters from the Profound Office and the Lingyuan Palace were just an exception for the young mountain owner of the Luopa Mountain in Aquarius. This is really not the small family spirit of the Shuilong sect, who cares about the amount of money from the gods, but involves the great luck of a small cave. Before talking about business at the Shuilong Zhongzhu Shirtang, Chen Pingon learned that Li Yuan, who was born in Shuijing, was actually seated on the right side of the chair, and the 2 Yupu realms, Sun Jie and Shao Jingji, both of which seemed to be surprised. No blame. Ning Yao hesitated and said, "When I came here, I brought some money with me." On the side of Feishing City in the colorful world, Chuanfu will accurately account for all the combat achievements made by sword repair in accordance with the regulations. In addition, every time sword repair breaks the realm, there will also be a gift from Feishingcheng Chuanfu. The sword needs money. But what about Ning Yao? Gao Yu and the entire Quan mansion, what else can they do? They can only bite the bullet and settle accounts. For example, Ning Yao is the first sword repairman in the Jade Pu realm, the first fairyland, the first to ascend. Realm, not to mention the merits of those who killed the gods, especially the one-eyed people of the ancient 12 high-ranking gods, plus the salaries of the sword repairs of the hermit. The account books opened by Ning Yao are both honorable and heartbroken. So now Ning Yao has become the biggest creditor of Feishingcheng. Simply put, she is extremely rich. Chen Pingon complained, "What is said, there is no such reason." Ning Yao glanced at Chen Pingon, and then at Long Ting Ho, who deliberately looked stupid and pricked her ears. She smiled without saying a word. When you say something, don't you just stare at your voice and raise your eyebrows? Isn't it on the side of your friends, that is more of the head of the family? The group walked towards the ready-made Xianjie mansion. The Dragon Palace Cave Sky in Beiju Luzhou, together with the Lion Peak, and the Lushui Hole on the sea was actually one of Li Liu's summer residences. Li Yuan was also uncertain whether Chen Pingan knew about this now. Anyway, the last time Li Lu appeared here, Chen Pingan, a fellow villager, seemed to be kept in the dark. Li Yuan drew out a jade plate from his sleeve, carved with a dragon pattern on one side, and an ancient seal with a great blue rain phase, and handed it to Chen Pingan. Now Chen Pingan is the master of Fushui Island. You see, Li Yuan should have given out the jade card of the Abbot's Island Formation Center, saying, if you just operate the mountain guarding formation, the jade card does not need to be refined. I told you about it last time, but it's really mysterious. The place is that the jade plate contains an ancient water art. Once it is successfully refined by a monk, you can ask the gods to come down to the truth and welcome a statue equivalent to a monk in the nascent soul realm. If it is in the river of great blasphemy fighting with people, the power of the Dhamma can be regarded as a jade pure realm. After all, this is a who was in charge of the important position of rainfall in the Ministry of Water in the Old Heaven. The official position of the is not low. The real name of the is Junqing, rain and rain, listen. It's just a big official. Chen Ping's income was in his sleeve, and he had his own plan. In fact, this Yuxiang jade metal alone is estimated to be worth much more than the entire Fushui Island. He joked, I'm not doing this deal with the Water Dragon sect. You have lost a semi-immortal treasure of water law. Li Yuan cast his eyes and said, what if the ordinary monks bought the Fushui Island? Will I give this thing? I must have accidentally lost it. I want to use the formation and let them find a substitute for this thing by their own ability. The great treasure of the immortal family. What are you polite to? Besides, if you weren't willing to accept it, the jade card would have been given to you. This is a tasteless thing to me. As a great Sikkim, it is not suitable to refine this thing. Just like in the officialdom, a subordinate servant of a local government office would dare to call a minister of a capital temple. Chen Pingan was silent for a moment, and then suddenly asked, it's just the way of Junqing. Even if you refine it, the problem is not big, right? Li Yuan smiled without saying anything. Chen Pingan immediately understood that this water official named Junqing had not fallen thousands of years ago, but those gods similar to the pleas of Ma Kushuan of Jinwu Mountain are still under the control of the Confucian Temple. In accordance with a certain rule established by the Saints of Rites, hiding behind the scenes, continue to control part of the operation of the heaven, earth and water transportation avenue. Therefore, it is not suitable for Long Ting Ho, who has been in the high position in the past. Sitting in the lobby, Pei Qian and Xiaomi Nui have already been familiar with the road. Earlier, they carried a bucket with a rag and worked together to clean the place. Chen Pingan said, we just sit here for a while, and we will leave immediately, so we still have to ask you for help if we have something. Li Yuan remembered something and said, you mean the Jinlu and Yulu Zhaijiao dojos in October? Didn't you give me 2 Guyu money before, and you also left the booklet with your names? These 2 decades I do it every year. If this is the case, you don't have to worry about it. This matter has become an annual rule on Fushui Island. The Water Dragon sect is very concerned, and I dare not neglect it at all. On the 10th day of October, the gods of the heavens, the earth, and the ghosts and gods are all in their places. Most of the Yangjian vulgars gave their ancestors cold clothes and sacrificed their ancestors. Here, the water dragon cultivators will carefully cut out 5-color paper and colored clothes. Each shop will give a small stove. However, the burning of paper is customary, 2 days before and after the 10th day of October, because this will not disturb the deceased's rest, and it will make the ghosts and gods of their ancestors and other parties the most useful. The following October 15th is the day of Shueguan relieving evil, which can help the deceased to relieve evil, and recommend to the dead to accumulate blessings. The ceremony held by the water dragon sect is more grand, and of course it costs more money. Except for the mountain monks from all over the continent, most of them are the generals of the Yuan dynasty to participate. Help me write down the names and native places of my ancestors and deceased. Some big dynasties with rich financial resources will make a special trip to the place when the war is over. They will make a special trip to pay homage to the heroes, pray for them, worship incense and light lamps, and accumulate blessings in the future. Chen Pingan said, "Where is the 2 grains of rain money? Let's talk about it. I have to make up how much fairy money you have helped me over the years." Back then, Chen Pingan didn't expect that he would be on the Great Wall of Jinchi, and would not be able to return home for a long time. He thought that he would always be able to travel to Luzhou in the north and return to the Water Dragon sect again after a few years. Li Yuan wanted to refuse. Because Li Yuan turned his elbow away in the Patriarch Hall, he turned from Shuijing into a black boy in Longtinghao. He didn't speak much, just a few words, one of which said that his friend is the lord of a sect on the mountain. So it is reasonable to say that Sun Jia and Xiao Jingji, you two, must meet at Munudu. Then Xiao Jingji learned that this person was on the top of the mountain. Not long after he entered the sect, Xiao Jingji had a reason to be a guest here, and gave the sect master Chen a water-like spiritual treasure, called a midge, shaped like a nymph. But on the mountain, it is also known as the Little Majiao, and it is raised in a small bamboo cage woven from Qingshanshan bamboo, with misty water. Chen Pingan declined, but in the end he was naturally disrespectful. However, this kind of material benefits are received today and sent tomorrow. Those who have a relationship are about the same as the money of the wedding banquet at the foot of the mountain. There is no one who has the advantage. For example, in future celebrations of Shuilong sect Nanzong, Chen Pingan and Luopashan naturally have to express that people can't get a gift, so what both parties really earn is actually the incense. Chen Pingan and Xiao Jingji are actually not familiar with each other at all, so that means that they have some polite words, but Xiao Jingji is good at finding words, Chen Pingan is also good at answering, a small chat, not a bit blunt, like 2 years of old friends. During Li Yuan's period, he only interjected, saying that Brother Qin and Lu Jinglong are best friends. Xiao Jingji smiled and nodded, but his heart was ups and downs. Could it be that the foreign sword fairy who had previously asked Jinsu Yunzong with Lu Jinglong was the predecessors? Xiao Jingji regretted it, and the gift was light. The old woman who had never said a word had no sect master Qin in her eyes, only Li Yuan, who looked like a long, eternal young man opposite her. The last time I reunited after a long absence was in the hall of the Grand Master of the Water Dragon. At that time, Li Yuan, with a little golden light condensed his figure, fell on the first seat on the right. His face was young, but his spirit was withered. The black-clothed boy has already had a complete spirit, and this is the advantage of being one of the Dadu Ho-Ho and getting a Confucian temple and Shuigong great sacrifice wine in person. The Yuaning old woman, who has no hope of breaking through in this life, seems to be more happy than she is in the 5 realms when she sees this situation with her own eyes. The old woman has the vicissitudes of life, no matter how ugly, and a pair of eyes that will no longer be moisturized. She will still hide a lot of words in her heart. It's like a love letter that has never been sent. From the time when a girl was a girl, she started to write the first word, and when the old woman was gray-haired, she didn't stop writing. Not all men and women in the world will love and think. They will plant a millet in spring, and harvest thousands of seeds in autumn. There may be no spring planting and autumn harvest. If you are not careful, your heart will be deserted, and the wild grass will spread, but the wildfire will always burn endlessly. Born again. Finally, Chen Pingan and Li Yuan together sent Xiao Jingji and the old woman to the island ferry. After they left on the Fuzhou, Chen Pingan asked softly, "Is there a story?" Li Yuan said with blank eyes, "There is no story to tell." Walking back to the mansion together, Li Yuan smiled and said, "Don't blame me for talking too much." Chen Pingan shook his head and said, "A few words, the finishing touch, just right." Li Yuan sighed, hugged the back of his head with both hands, and said, "Although Sun Jia doesn't like to deal with relationships, he won't lack the necessary etiquette. Most of them are waiting for news, and then see you at Munudu. Otherwise, if you come to Fushui Island first, Xiao Jingzi's temper is likely to be unwilling to come." Xiao Jingzi's aunt, who seems smart, actually thinks things are too simple, and never thinks about Sun Jia's concessions and goodness on these trivial matters. Hard work. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Then let's not let sect master Sun wait for a long time." Li Yuan said with emotion, "Being the sect master, it is better to be clean and self-conscious. If you want to be considerate, it will not be easy. In the future, the bigger the family business, the more difficult it will become." He watched the rise of the water dragon sect little by little, and then divided it into the northern and southern sects step by step. Li Yuan was not so exhausted from the beginning. In fact, the water dragon sect was able to enter the sect. In his early years, whether Li Yuan was it is a great contribution to making suggestions or doing it by himself. Li Yuan sits with a clear conscience in the top seat of the Zhu Shirtang at the right. It is only the changes over the years, and over time, he gradually becomes nosy, even if he has been scolded by the real fire dragon. He couldn't help the wall, so he recognized it. Chen Pingan nodded and said, "Old liar." Li Yuan said, "Chen Pingan, you must not let Luopashan become the second water dragon sect." Chen Pingan walked slowly along the shore with his arms folded in his arms, smiling, "I will fight for it." Don't look at Li Yuan looking at the same as his own uncle Jingqing, in fact, it is very different. The former is just lazy, in fact, everything in his heart is clear, as for the latter, he is really lacking in mind. Therefore, when Li Yuan is the Longting Ho, he will only rise in the future, and will not be overwhelmed by Shenlin's Lingyuan Palace. If he is replaced by Chen Lingjun, it is estimated that there will be a big banquet every day, one after another. Field, and then suddenly found out one day, what, no money. Bai Chang's reputation on the Great Wall of Jianqi in his early years is not very good, but it is not bad. He is not like a man who handed his sword vaguely. The reason why he missed the previous battle of the Great Wall of Jianqi was just waiting until the wild world was hit. The old dragon city followed Tianjun Xiesher, and walked to Aquarius Island together. Maybe Bai Chang was waiting, betting that all the sword repairers would lose his reputation, and he would stay in Beiju Luzhou and wait for someone to be more capable. A breakthrough opportunity for drought and flood protection. Chen Pingan nodded, lost in thought. Ning Yao looked a little awkward, and said straightforwardly in his heart, "I went to Jinhu Duckweed just because there is Li Kai and Chen Li and Gao Yuqing, two younger generations from hometown." Seemingly headless, he jumped out an inexplicable sentence. Chen Pingan returned to his senses and smiled, understood. Ning Yao smiled and said, "You can't secretly record Pei Qian's account, right?" Chen Pingan was puzzled, for no reason, what should I say? Ning Yao nodded and said, "It turned out to be pretending to be confused." Chen Pingan was about to hug her shoulders, but Ning Yao gently pushed it away, staring at him fiercely. When the wooden seal was returned at the ferry, the smiling water dragon sect cultivator, standing beside a Beizong palm discipline cultivator, looked respectful, and said something to Chen Pingan. In addition to Munudu, the three people appeared beside the dotted bank. They were Sovereign Sun Jia, who worshipped Wuling Pavilion in Yuanying Realm, and Bai Bai, a direct disciple of Patriarch Ho. Chen Pingan first sent a letter to Kaik Mansion at the ferry crossing Feijian, and then Yufeng went to see the sovereign, Sun Jia. Chen Pingan actually recognized the female cultivator who was personally handed down by the suzerain, and also knew that she was from the rich family of Fuyu Kingdom. The reason for her deep memory was not because she had seen it twice before and after, but because she owned a set of 18 water dragon ancestors. There was also a guqin named Sanchue that was given to him. Bai once played vigorously with Sun Qing of Kaik Mansion in that secret site. Bai did not recognize the old monk who hugged a bamboo tree and did not let go. The gift from the suzerain, Sun Jia, was a pair of ox roar fish only found in the forbidden area of the deep lake of the water dragon sect. This is a real once-in-century encounter and is extremely rare. The key is that Sun Jia is very sincere and directly sent a pair, which is even more rare. Therefore, even Li Yuan was a little stunned. After all, if he was not careful, it was not just the shuolongzong that produced the cowfish. Therefore, Chen Pingan took the initiative to say, Sect Master's son, in the future, if there is something that is useful, I implore Feijian to spread the faith of Aquarius Island to Luopa Mountain. You need to learn from the best of 100 schools and strive for perfection, but there are a lot of things. It's really the first time I saw it, some words, or even the first time I heard it, this is a bit strange. Zhu Lian smiled and said, compared with the old Hong's skills on the mountain, my hearsay about the official style of the mountain below is not worth mentioning. At most, it is doing some icing on the cake. The old Hong does not complain about me. It's already a big belly. The old man laughed and said, Mr. Zhu is too humble. Zhu Lian picked up the wine bowl and said with a smile, a good thing always sounds good when someone says it. The old man gently bumped the bowl with him, nodding his head and saying, Mr. Zhu has many witty words. So he especially likes to chat with Zhu Lian. Their business is regarded as earning money on the mountain with their heads down. In fact, they are no different from the farmers at the bottom of the mountain. When they arrive on the mountain, they are often not regarded by the masters of genealogy. Even if the face is polite, it is only due to the other party's style, tutoring and etiquette. Only on the side of Luopa Mountain, I met the butler Zhu Lian, which was very different. The matter of ramming the soil during this period of time has to be simple, or extremely difficult, and Mr. Zhu from the Luopa Mountain side chose the latter, not talking about the immortal methods, just different. The soil layer needs 7 or 8 layers, lime soil, clay, broken bricks, and pebbles, alternately to prevent moisture and stop the building from sinking. Layers of soil are hit 3 times first, and then the soil is emptied. Full of meteors in the eye, after the dry ramming, it is falling into the water, spinning ramming, pouring the glutinous rice juice, and surviving, and many of the soil in this, even Zhu Lian personally dug from various hills and then mixes, removes the soil in addition to the work, the wood-made ink fountain line, the bamboo pen cut line, the shavings and tenon, the stone-made large stone flattened, and the axe. It seems that there is nothing that Zhu Lian can't. It's just that the old master thinks again that being able to be a housekeeper for a Zongzi head immortal family, and some personal abilities, is not too incredible. Zhu Lian glanced at a young man in the distance, Jiang Chu, who was the only Fulu monk in Luopa Mountain besides the owner of the mountain. In addition, this person came from the Great Wall of Jianqi, so no matter who he was on the mountain, he was very kind to Jiang Chu. You are polite. After the young man got a copy of the talisman cheats, he wanted to focus on practice. Zhu Lian didn't let him fulfill his wish. Almost every time he came to Huimeng Mountain, he would take Jiang with him. In the letter, the master Chen Shan said that he had helped find 3 famous guest qings, namely Xianfeng Yuanlingdian and Chongxian. Department of Yunshao Palace Yanghojue, Duckweed Sword Lake Sword Repair Rongchang. There is a true legend of the fire dragon who is regarded as an immortal cultivation base in Beiju Luzhou, a second-in-command old immortal master who is responsible for the specific matters of the Deyuan Chongxian Department and Yunshao Palace, and the Yuanying realm who is said to be about to break through. Jianxiu. Sun Qing and his disciple Lu Guibao had just returned to the mountain. After Sun Qing put down the letter, he looked at Wu Yu and wondered, "Did you use a beauty trick against Chen Shanju? Otherwise, why should Chen Pingan be so enthusiastic, as if he was hiring Keqing for his own hilltop?" He sent 3 mountain bosses directly to the little Kaik mansion in one breath, which is a fuel-saving lamp. It is really not everyone can ask for it. In the future, the cultivators of Kaik mansion, with such 3 well-known guest servants, wouldn't they still have to walk sideways on Beiju Luzhou? Wu Yu smiled and said, "With Ning Jianxian, do I dare to use beauty tricks?" The teacup that Ning Yao had drunk in the tea shop before, Wu Yu had already cherished it, and felt that it was a bit wrong, so he put away Chen Shan's one together, but it still felt like something was wrong. Wu Yu did simply collected all the teacups from the guests of Luopa Mountain. Sun Qing said, "A pity, I would not go out if I knew it," and missed Ning Jianxian. Lu Guibao sighed and looked at his master with a vague expression. "What a rare opportunity. I would not accompany you to see Mr. Lu if I knew it." Wu Yu smiled and said, "Nothing, your masters and apprentices worry about you. I am happy with mine." When I arrived at Pima sect, in a house where Chen Pingan was familiar with Maishan, I met Zhu Quan, who had resigned as the suzerain, and of course, Du Wenxi and Pang Lanxi, 2 of his own worship. The sword-bearing immortal Master Guiqi, after learning that the sword-backed woman was actually Ning Yao, slapped the table and laughed. "The realm is high, and the person is beautiful. Fortunately, I am not good-looking, so I can't be jealous." The top sect of Zhongtu Shenzhou was known about Ning Yao's ascendance with his sword, and the upper Middle-earth sect that was wearing hemp sect was one of them. Chen Pingan was about to laugh, but he couldn't laugh immediately. Because Zhu Quan took a big sip of alcohol on his own, he laughed and cursed. "There are a few old people here who are not ashamed, because the last time I partnered with Chen Pingan to intercept and kill Gao Qing, the ghost is obsessed, and everywhere I say I have a leg with Chen Pingan. Ning Yao, don't think too much about it. There is nothing at all." If these are all revisiting the old places, then Chen Pingan will naturally go to some places that have never been before. No matter how hurried the pace is, life needs to be calm. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.